Thank you all for joining us this evening. I'm Father Arnie Paniel, the Director of the Catholic Information Center here. We are most honored to have Bill Donohue joining us this evening for this event, presenting his new book. He's a teacher who goes back quite a ways. He began his teaching career actually in the 70s, working at St. Lucy's College in Spanish Harlem. In 1977, he took a position as a college professor teaching at La Roche College in Pittsburgh. 3 years later, Bill was awarded his PhD in sociology from NYU. He's the president and CEO of the Catholic League for Religious and Civil Rights, the nation's largest Catholic civil rights organization. The publisher of the Catholic League Journal, The Catalyst, he served for 2 decades on the board of directors of the National Association of Scholars and continues to guest lecture every year at New York University's Fulbright program for PhDs from around the world. He serves also on the board of advisors for the Washington Legal Foundation, the Educational Freedom Foundation, the Society of Catholic Social Scientists, Catholics United for the Faith, the Jewish Action Alliance Ave Maria Institute, the Christian Film and Television Commission, Project Moses, Catholic Citizens of Illinois, the Georgetown Academy, Catholics Come Home, the Coalition to Save Iraqi Christians, and the Advisory Committee for Inside Catholic Com. In addition, he's a member of the Ancient Order of Hibernians, the Catholic War Veterans, and is an honorary member of the Catholic Social Workers National Association. He serves also on the editorial advisory board of the Family in America, A Journey of Public Policy. Bill's won several teaching awards, many awards from Catholic community. He's appeared on thousands of television and radio shows speaking on civil liberties and social issues. And you ask, well, how does a man have a chance to sit down and write a book? But we're certainly glad that you did, Bill, and glad to have you with us. I'd just like to mention a couple of things about the book and let William Donohue here take over and the master and let us know what he's really thinking about. Clearly, in recent years, the Catholic Church has gone through terribly turbulent times. The uncovering of the horrible abuse in the 10 years ago, the abuse that persisted and which could have been prevented by many within the Church's own ranks. Unfortunately, as a result of this, many positive aspects of the Catholic Church teaching and practices are being overlooked, not just by the media, but people in and out of the pews. I think, fortunately, there's a change in this, and I think the new HHS mandate has given us an opportunity to speak about things which have been hushed up for a long time. As Donohue makes plain, the Church's teachings remain the best guide to good living ever adopted. We, in a sense, are in a Catholic moment in America. 20 centuries of the experience of living according to a principled anthropology, the flourishing, the human flourishing that comes from that, the destruction, the despair that comes from living against that, the thinking, the coalescence of that, the distillation of that's become Catholic social doctrine. The content of these teachings defy today's typical ideological categorizations. The Church is decidedly conservative in matters of morality and yet compellingly liberal in social and economic affairs. It really is, as St. Paul was, all things to all men. Always willing to speak his mind and put up a good fight, Bill Donohue, as president of the Catholic League, reminds the readers of his book of the great wealth of charity and wisdom that exists in the Catholic tradition. He explores the 4 cardinal virtues, prudence, justice, fortitude, temperance in this book, and shows us how the Church's best attributes can be applied to solve many of the big problems society must confront today and in the future. The good society lies in waiting, he writes, but the right recipe has been around for 2,000 years. The more we learn about the inspiring record of Catholic social teaching and their applications to real-life problems, the more likely it is that all of us will see how unfounded the negative stereotypes of Catholicism really are. But first, we need to be educated about the glorious record of these teachings. And that's why we will know then why, as the book says, why Catholicism really matters. Bill, we're so happy to have you with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Father.
Thank you.
Thank you, Father. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you here this evening about the book. A couple of years ago, I was working with an editor, Trace Murphy, part of the Doubleday, Crown, Random House group, big publishing group, and I had an idea about a book which was kind of professorial, and he would very politely told me, he said, I think we can think of another book. And he said, we get a lot of negative press, and sometimes justly earned, and a lot of times unfairly, we are being targeted these days. And he said, somebody needs to write a book about some of the good things that have been done. There have been a few books out there in the past. Some of them are pretty good. But the kind of book that I wanted to do brings more of my sociological training to the table. And I'm trying to look at this historically as well as today. And it's wrapped around the four cardinal virtues, as Father said. My argument is basically quite simple. And that is that down throughout the ages, all the great philosophers have talked about the good society. What is the good society? What constitutes the good society? How do we achieve the good society? And the argument I'm making is that the answer's been there for a long time. If you were to follow the teachings of the Catholic Church, you would have the good society. That's the answer. Now, that's a pretty tall bar to clear, because the Catholic Church's teachings are very, very demanding. I happen to be of the opinion that it's better to try and massage the runner and the high jumper, and to try and get him to clear the bar as opposed to dropping the bar down. In this country, I think from the bedroom to the boardroom and many other examples, we have seen inflation, we have seen the dumbing down, we have seen appealing to the worst common denominator. I think the Catholic Church, with its high demands on us, should remain. I think that we should be helped to try and clear the bar. And yes, I get the refrain, well, who are you to talk about this? After all, don't you have some problems in your own ranks? It's really not that hard to answer this. I was talking to somebody the other day, this one woman, and she says, I can't answer the question when people say, well, you've had a scandal in your own church. Look, if every priest who failed us had followed his vows as opposed to his id, we wouldn't have had the problem. The fact of the matter is, we are all sinners. That's why the Pope goes to confession. That's why we had problems with the apostles. We know this, that people are failed human beings, and we as Catholics have an understanding of redemption, and we have an understanding of forgiveness. The question is this, are the teachings corroded? No, the teachings are excellent. If you can follow the teachings of the Catholic Church, and in fact, in dealing with the scandal, canon law doesn't need to be amended. What needs to be amended is the behavior of some of our clergy. And we're talking a very, very small number, by the way. All right, let's get this thing straight. You're talking about 149 priests out of 100,000 who are responsible for something like 27% of all the cases. And don't forget to factor in all the cases of false accusations. But I don't want to just belabor this particular problem. I'm simply saying this. The teachings are sound. If the teachings were the problem, then I wouldn't be here today trying to sell you the idea that we've got the right recipe for the good society. The fact that some people fail shouldn't come as some kind of a breaking news. Now, what I'm saying is this. If you look at this thing historically, where do you think the idea of the university came from? It didn't come from the Greeks. It didn't come from the Romans. Certainly they gave us Aristotle. They gave us Cicero. What university did they found? Nothing. That was the work of the Catholic Church, and particularly the Irish. They're the ones who preserved all the great works of the people who came before them. Where did the idea of freedom come from? Why is it that freedom originated in the West? It didn't originate in the East. I mean, matter of fact, the Chinese and the Japanese didn't even have a word for freedom until the 19th century. So, we have to take a look at the rich tradition of art, of architecture, of music, of the universities, of the idea that reason, which is what the Catholic Church puts a premium on, reason in pursuit of truth. That's how you understand Catholicism. So reason in pursuit of truth will get you there. The natural teleology, or the ultimate purpose of Catholicism, is what I call the focus on the other. The most natural thing in the world is for us to focus on ourselves. But that kind of egocentrism is not very helpful in society. The Catholic Church tries to combat that by trying to inculcate a set of values into young people and into adults, that the prime attention should not be to yourself, but should be to others. That's why Aquinas and others said, listen, we have it in natural law. We have the two great commandments, love of God, love of our neighbor. That's the heart and soul of the natural law. Yes, natural law was there before with Aristotle. He referred to it as universal law. But it was our church that gave us the grounding of natural law. And people say, well, that's kind of an antiquated notion of natural law, the idea that everybody knows in their heart of hearts that some things are palpably wrong. people say, well, that's not true. What's really true is what the government decreed.